Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another session of the 18th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment virtual conference. I'm Bob Hales. I'm your moderator. Don't forget, we have a sponsor this year that is the Journal of Educators Online, JEO, and they have some really great refereed articles in it. I I feel confident you'd find something in there that is of great interest to you and maybe learn something. You can go to thejeo.com. I'll take you right to it. This morning we have with us Rondo Wakeland, who is an assistant professor of e-learning at the University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences, which in Arkansas people call UAMS. I was at University of Arkansas for a while. Um, she's worked in the fields of e-learning and instructional design for 15 years. Started when she was 10 years old, I guess.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah, and she's currently examining the usefulness of AI for students with disabilities. Thus, we have the title of the presentation, Exploring AI for Students with Disabilities in a Virtual Learning Environment. And I'm looking forward to it. So, Rhonda, take it away, please.
Thank you so much, Bob. Hi, everybody. It is so great that you're able to join my session today. And like Bob said, I've been doing this for a little while. And, back during the pandemic, pretty much everything went online. I know at UAMS, we were so used to meeting all of our students in person. We have a lot of science labs and, just a lot that goes on in person. We're not only a medical school, but we're also a working hospital, and we're quite a big hospital at that. We have over, let's say, I think probably 12,000 employees. 2,000 of those, maybe 2,500 of those are actually students who also work for the university. And like I said, it's a big campus and we're statewide and we have a lot of specializations. And as an e-learning specialist during the time of the pandemic, we were all hurrying and rushing around trying to figure out what is the best way to provide our students with the assistance that they need. How can they continue with their classes? So one of the projects that I was faced with was, making our courses accessible. And we use something called Blackboard for our learning management system. And I'm pretty sure you've all heard of Blackboard, but it was a challenge. It was a challenge to get a lot of these programs online and in Blackboard. And then AI came along, and AI, it really it's been around for a while. We've used AI. I mean, we all use Siri every day, and but in the context of using it for education, that was kind of new. And so we began to explore the uses of AI for our students and to help our instructors as well. And my research began about 2 or 3 years ago. And my question was, could I, or is it possible that we could use artificial intelligence for students with disabilities? So this is coming out of a bigger project, and this project actually isn't finished yet. We're still working on it. And we're about to probably conclude it in October of this year. So what you're seeing here in this presentation is the foundation for the research that I've been doing. So let me go ahead and get started here. All right, so this is our agenda for today. So just take a quick look here. I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I do want you to be aware of what we're talking about. And, like I said, my research began with the question. The overall question was, how can AI benefit students with disabilities, or can it? And And which what came with that also too was a need to be disability aware. What kind of disabilities are our students facing? And how could we possibly work that into our curriculum? And with 2,500 students, when we think about accessibility and we ask the question, can courses be accessible for everyone? That sounds like a pretty lofty goal, doesn't it? And there are tools out there that do help. In Blackboard, we have a tool called Ally. And what it does is it helps to it enables the instructors to check their courses for accessibility issues. So, for example, images that are missing alt text, um, documents with low contrast, for example, things of that nature that make items more accessible, not only for students with disabilities, but for generally for everyone. And then also too, we also have the real problem of pedagogy and how to incorporate that pedagogy into building an inclusive virtual classroom. At UAMS, we have instructors that their courses are 50-50. Some of them are synchronous with an asynchronous component. And as you know, synchronous means everybody's in the same time in the same place. Asynchronous may be a discussion board. So people, they access their courses at any time of the day or the night, and they finish their coursework on their own time. So we have a mix of both at my institution. And then, when we look at the right tool for the right job, we're mixing that pedagogy with our classroom. Well, what tool, if we're going to employ artificial intelligence, is right for what we're trying to achieve with that pedagogy? And finally, we're also going to take a look of the future of AI and its potential for students and other people with disabilities as well. Okay. So here are our objectives today. Now, these objectives aren't necessarily just for me, these are for you as well, because I would like for you all to have some takeaways once we get done with this presentation. I would like for you to be able to understand just how important it is to develop an inclusive online learning environment. In present day um, education, we're learning that most students would rather meet online just for the sheer fact that it's more convenient for them. Again, not to bring up where I work, but we have a lot of working adults, people that can't always make it to a classroom at 8 o'clock in the morning because they have another job. We have programs such as our APRN, that's Advanced Practice Registered Nurses. They're already a certified registered nurse and they're just going for that next level. They're going for their doctorate in nursing. So they're not only working clinical hours, but they're also advancing their education as well. So not everybody can be in a classroom at the same time. So we need to include, um, a more inclusive learning environment. We want to also be able to compare our various pedagogical methods. One of my favorites is adaptive learning. And adaptive learning is very, very beneficial for students that do have various disabilities. For example, our neurodivergent students with disabilities. And, if you're not familiar with the term, when I say neurodivergent, I'm referring to people that may have autism, who may be on various spectrums of autism. Everybody learns differently. So having that ability to have adaptive learning that kind of meets them where they are and helps to guide them through that learning process. So that's a neurodivergent learner. Um, and we want to be able to analyze that methodology. So we look at our pedagogy and then we're going to come back, we're going to analyze our current methodology. Will our pedagogy work with that artificial intelligence tool, that we would like to use for our students. And then I would like for you to be able to develop a strategy and then finally be able to design your course. So you're putting everything together. We're building on what we're able to do and what we're able to learn from our uses of artificial technology. Okay, first question. This may sound obvious for some people, but it really isn't. So, I mean, for example, can we identify a disability? If you're, let's say for example, you're in the airport and you're just walking through the airport and you're getting ready to go on a plane. Everybody, when you look at somebody, you may not be able to tell that they have a disability. An example I like to give are individuals who have epilepsy. It's not always apparent that that person has a disability, or maybe they have PTSD. These things aren't necessarily physical in nature at first sight, but there is a large array of disabilities that aren't always identifiable. So when we think of a disability, we have to think of it in terms of the whole person. Some disabilities are indeed physical. Others may be, there may be a learning disability. There may be someone who has, of course, epilepsy. Um, by first looks of myself, and this is why I'm so passionate about students with disabilities, I have epilepsy. I haven't always had epilepsy. I was actually in a very bad car accident in 2009, which changed my life. And now, as a result, of a traumatic head injury, I have epilepsy. So there are things there that I have to be aware of. For example, and if you've all worked with, certain instructional designers, they like to, include the flashing lights, for example, maybe loud noises to, kind of amp up the presentation a little bit. Well, those really are things that we can do without. Do we need the flashing lights? Do we need the quick transitions in our slides? Because those kinds of things can cause problems with certain people who may have disabilities, such as as mine, or someone who has PTSD. Loud noises, for example, can trigger certain feelings and anxiety for those people. So we need to be aware of that when we're building our content online. So that, I just want you to know that we can't always easily identify a disability and it's not always physical. Okay. So the question is, how could AI be beneficial for students? This first started out as a question when I was, initially researching this is, well, what is AI? What is artificial intelligence and does it have any use for us in education? Well, my research led me to an article and if you see here, I have the names of the authors of this article and I do have those resources if you would like them. I'd be happy to share them and you can look them up for yourself. But according to this recent article, I hate reading these. I really do. I don't like to read slides, but AI is a technology that enables computers and machines to simulate human learning. And it also enables comprehension and problem solving, decision making, creativity, and autonomy. Given that, if AI can do all that, and we have discovered that, yeah, it can. And I'm going to also introduce you to a couple of artificial intelligence tools that were designed for students with disabilities. It can do that, and it is beneficial for some students with disabilities. And I think that moving forward in the future, we're going to actually see how beneficial it can be for us in education and what we can do for our students and how we can help them. So this is where, and pardon the colloquialism, but this is where sort of the rubber meets the road. This is where human and machine meet. Artificial intelligence and students with disabilities, this is where they connect. And this is where we begin to really look at the information that we have available to us. And it's sort of a building. We're going to start to build on what we have and what we know. So is it possible to provide accessibility for everyone? This is a very lofty goal. I know that. I know like I said, I've been working in this field for years. And having over 2,500 students with different needs, it's not always easy to be able to pick out who needs help and who doesn't. Thankfully, we do have a fantastic disability office that works with our students and who notifies our instructors when they are in need of assistance. Not everyone likes to self-identify with a disability for one reason or another. And that's when we need to be prepared and to try to work with those issues when we are confronted with them. A lot of instructors come to me and they say, "Yeah, but I've made my course so user-friendly." And I like to remind them it's not just about creating a user-friendly interface for our students. It's more than that. We have to provide them with those accessibility options. And the tools like Ally do help us do that. And what we have learned, and this has also come out with my research, and I don't have this listed here, but recently we found out that since we have started using Ally to help provide us with better accessibility, that not only do students with disabilities use the tool, but also our other students use them as well. So Ally allows them to use different formats. For example, Ally will allow them to listen to a document rather than read it. So you have different options as to how um, to view or listen to the document. So having tools like this available to us not only helps our students with disabilities, but all of our other students as well. We've also learned that 7%, and this is quite a low number, only feel that they are adequately represented. And for us, even at our institution, we found out that's even lower. I believe that 5% of our students have informed us that they don't feel like they are adequately represented. So we are actually in a process right now of doing a complete audit of all of our courses and working to improve our accessibility. I believe we have set a goal that before the end of the year, we want all of our online content to be at least 80% accessible. I know at our sister institution in Fayetteville, the University of Arkansas, they are aiming for 90% by the end of the year. Um, so we have a ways to go to improve the accessibility for our students. Also, people think that they're going to get this amazing tool and they're going to use it for their students and they're just going to create it once, they're going to leave it, and that's it. But it's not a set it and forget it one time deal. We need to review our content every semester. I know it seems like a lot of work and it really does keep you on your toes, but to be able to go every year and make sure that everything is there, that everything needs to be accessible for our students on a continuous basis. I mean, we do get new students every term and we get students with different needs every term. So being able to make sure everything is working correctly is essential to make sure that all of your content is meeting those accessibility guidelines. based on our federal government standards. It also must be constantly available and adaptable. And again, these tools that I'm going to introduce you to in just a little bit are going to help you with that. It's going to make things more fluid for you to be able to provide that information for your students. Also, AI's data. So, as you know, AI is basically huge data sources. Human beings like myself and yourself work with these data centers, and we input the technology for artificial intelligence. That's also going to be a huge job in the future. It's going to offer a lot of opportunities for people that want to work in artificial intelligence. And I know recently, one of our institutions here in Arkansas has started an artificial intelligence degree program. So now you can go and get your bachelor's in artificial intelligence. So there are huge opportunities for us in the future moving forward as to keep content and information fresh in artificial intelligence. So we need to be considerate of this. All right, now let's talk about pedagogy. I don't know how many of you here are instructional designers. I imagine there are quite a few, but if you are an instructional designer or if you're just a teacher, then you probably know some of these. So the constructivist approach, which is what I am, I strongly believe in allowing people to build upon their own knowledge. I like to meet them where they are at and to help them to grow and to learn more. Also, the collaborative approach. And one of the things I like to do is I like to combine the two. I like to combine the constructivist and the collaborative approach and allow people to work together and build their knowledge. The reflective approach, integrative, and inquiry based. So let's ask questions. You can learn by asking questions, kind of like the Socratic method. But thinking about our five pedagogies that we have here, and of course there are others, but when we're working with these kind of common pedagogies, how do we use them or combine them with the new artificial intelligence tools into an active learning environment? So that's why we're also going to be talking about pedagogies. Okay. So now this can be a bit of a challenge. The use of AI is for education and instruction is new. It's new for us educators. So when we're thinking about, okay, well, I have this plan set out. I know I'm going to use the constructivist approach, or I'm going to use a collaborative approach, or whatever you're using, but I've got this tool and I need to use this tool so I can make my content accessible for my student who has this disability. How do I match my pedagogy with my tool? Well, there are tools that do provide various avenues to these different to these different pedagogical approaches. So again, you have your adaptive learning. Some offer a personalized learning path, and I'm a big fan of this one, of course, being a constructivist. I love the personalized learning paths that guide the students through the lesson plans for the students. Also, an interactive and immersive learning environment. This is another one that I really love because it allows the student to work directly with a problem. One of the things that we do here at UAMS is we have simulations, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute too. Simulations. So, what happens when a 55-year-old male enters into the emergency room presenting signs of a stroke? What do we do? So we are presenting them with the question and we're allowing them to actually work directly with the program as AI guides them through. and also too with their teammates as well. So they're able to collaborate with their teammates and interact in that immersive learning environment. The learning simulations, again, the integrative approach. So you have the learning simulations and the immersive learning. So things are coming together, you see. You can actually, there are some tools that actually combine them as well. Games. I love the games approach as well because they're offered and we know students there are a lot of students that love to game. It gives them an ability to so to speak win at a challenge, for example. So you program a challenge in the AI tool and provide that to them as a game. It gives them an incentive to win and to succeed. Role playing, and also active collaboration with their team. So, what are the benefits of pairing AI with a pedagogy? So, you can take a quick minute here to just look down over the list that I have provided. And of course, it's going to be knowledge building, that interaction, that ability to work directly with that content, as you can see. So, working with the content allows you to build your knowledge. Oh, and yes, 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 language and accessibility support. Now, it's not necessarily a a disability, but sometimes, we do have students that may have auditory issues. Maybe they're not native speakers. Again, that's not a disability, but they're not native speakers. So you can program your artificial intelligence learning tool for those students to include other languages, for example. For example, Spanish or French. There are so many that you can program your tool with to help those students as well. Assistive technology. So there you go again. We have tools for those people who maybe have auditory issues or maybe they have problems speaking. So we have those assistive technologies as well as for students who are visually impaired and a diverse representation of content. So again, now we're thinking about students maybe who are um, maybe dyslexic, and we can harken back to those assistive technologies for that as well, or those people that are neurodivergent who may be on the spectrum. So diverse representation of content. So maybe instead of, oh, I don't know, but maybe a game, maybe they can watch a video, but however best works for them and their learning style. So we have different representation. Data-driven insights for instructors. Now, this is one of my favorites. And we do have a tool in Blackboard again that allows us to take a look at our data and see exactly maybe where the students are tripping up at, where we need to improve or provide a different method for providing that content to our students. So I can look at questions that I've provided in quizzes, and I can see what questions may be a little bit harder for the students. Maybe they don't quite understand, and that enables me to work with an instructor and then uh, um, maybe rephrase that question or provide it in a different kind of format for them. Also, flexible communication channels. Not everybody communicates in the same way. I've personally had to work very hard my entire life to overcome shyness. And sometimes you get students in your class that don't like to speak up, for example. So there are other ways that we can facilitate a discussion. And AI can also help facilitate that as well. Reducing the bias in grading. and culturally inclusive content as well, finally. So we have a lot of benefits of pairing AI with our various pedagogies. So, selecting the right tools for the job. One of my first presentations I did at UAMS was on selecting the right tools for the right job. And, I can't believe all these years later I'm coming back to this. But it's true. It's true. Sometimes you select one tool and then you realize, well, that didn't really work out the way I had planned. So we have to be aware of what kind of tool we're actually selecting for our students and how to implement it for them. So we're going back to those goals that I mentioned earlier. We want to be able to review and to implement our plans for our courses and for our students. And we want to, of course, select the proper tool to enhance that learning environment. So let's get to that. So here are a couple examples of our AI tools. So for personalized adaptive learning, we have just a couple of examples here: Adaptimi, Newton, BrainPop, and Athena. I've tested these, and I'll tell you, my sister-in-law is a fifth grade elementary school teacher, and she has two students in her class who are neurodivergent. And I asked her to test Brain Pop and Newton. Her favorite, and I'm not trying to sell anybody here, but she did enjoy Brain Pop. If you're interested in any of the tools that I do mention here, you can Google them and take a look at them for yourself. But she did enjoy it, and her students seem to enjoy it as well. So that's just a little personal knowledge there. But students maybe who don't speak English, or maybe it's not their first language, we have for language learning Duolingo. You might have heard of this one. It's been around for a little bit. Simulation, Labster, and that's really great for scientific experiments and laboratory projects. And we actually tested this with a group of high school students, and they really enjoyed it and had a lot of fun with it. So you may want to take a look at that. And then, of course, we have tools for our neurodivergent learners, our individuals with autism or ADHD, dyslexia. So perplexity. Perplexity, what it does is it helps to simplify the information for your students. It breaks it down for them in a manner that they can understand, and it actually responds to the students' answers, and it's able to identify when those students are having difficulty. So once they answer a question of a certain difficulty level, it goes to another level. Or perhaps that student had problems with that particular question, so the program will sort of do an about face and refer back to an easier question. So it's guiding those students along the way. Grammarly. I'm pretty sure you've all heard of this one and you've probably used it. I use it every day in my writing because I can be quite careless sometimes when I'm in a rush. But Grammarly, of course, but I bet you didn't know, or maybe you did, that it's really great for people with dyslexia. So it helps those people that have problems with spelling or maybe transpose letters. So you might want to consider Grammarly for those people who have dyslexia. Otter AI, lecture transcription and auditory disabilities. This is really great. This is kind of like that ally tool that I told you all about that we use at my institution. And Canva, which provides visual representations and helps with processing challenges. So these are just a few examples here of AI tools that you can use based on your course needs and goals, and also maybe your pedagogical methods. Um, my suggestion here is try them out. Now they aren't cheap. They aren't cheap, I'll say that. But they do have trials that you can use. And if you work for an institution, if it works out, hopefully you can get them to pay for it. But one of the challenges with any new technology is going to be the cost, of course, and we'll talk about that again in just a minute. So, what are the benefits of AI powered learning? Here are the results of some study statistics, and I'm actually coming up with my own as well. And I'm in the process right now of launching a survey for my students. And it's going to be across several different departments. We're actually in the process of working with our physician's assistant program right now and our laboratory assistance program students, and which includes, oh, I think about 400 or 500 students. So we'll have a pretty good sample size once it's all said and done. But what we're looking at is the usability. I want to know what they're using. I want to know how often they're using it. I want to know their opinions of it. And I want to know if they would recommend these tools to other people as well. But that this is my own personal example of a survey that I'm going to be conducting shortly. But according to a recent survey here from Andrews, according to Andrews, 80% accurate recommendations. And I think that's true. However, sometimes we do get some bad information. And as you can see, there's still that 20% that we have to worry about. Um, and that's compared to human advice. Now, not all humans give good advice either. I've had my share of moments where I've given bad advice. So, it can be subjective. And we do have to caution our students, of course, when they are, maybe asking ChatGPT a question or any other artificial intelligence assistance tool. Um, for any question that they may have. Um, According to Verma, we get a 91% accuracy with chatbots for personalized help and guidance to students. Well, and again, that's going to be dependent on, I think, the chatbot that they use. I am cautious with this, and I've warned students about this as well. We can't always depend on artificial intelligence. We also need to do our own research. So, check it out. Check it out. Um, you can ask your artificial intelligence tool, but, go behind that as well and double check, of course. Adaptive learning, of course, this is one of my favorites. A 62% increase. I think that's great, but I think we need to take another look here and see exactly what the increase is in. What questions were asked for the students? Um, what subject was the increase in? And was it across the board? Or was it for students with disabilities? So, being careful here in regards to our statistics. And also, too, reducing test anxiety by 20%. And, and to me, that's somewhat of a lower number. And if it helps some, great. Uh, but I want to know what exactly they're testing. So, and the reason why I put this here is because I put the statistics with a sense of hope but caution, and I'm hopeful um, for the success, and I don't want to steer you one way or the other because I want you to have your own opinion. But I feel that we need to be cautious here, and of course ask questions as to what our statistics are telling us here. I remember back in graduate school, I was required to read a text called uh, um, Truth, Lies, and Damn Statistics. And it was a fun book. And some of you may have heard of it, but it was a fun book. And I think, that's where we're at. We have to be cautious with our statistics. But, as as an academic, we always have to add our statistics to everything. Also, too, the AI prediction of a student's final grade with 80% accuracy. Um, So, these are just some t statistics that I've provided here. Again, hope but caution. And, you're certainly, you know, I would support you to do your own research as well and see where you land on some of these. And of course, I think statistics have changed since I initially presented this information 8, 9 months ago, but they're always changing, when we talk about artificial intelligence. Issues. So what are some of the issues we may encounter? Well, of course, we know these things. We've talked about them. We can't escape it because we always hear them on the news. Privacy and security. So every time a student enters an answer into the program, that answer is going into a database somewhere. It's being saved, and that database is being used to inform and improve and to guide that artificial intelligence tool. So that tool is constantly expanding based on that information that we ourselves input into that tool. Also, bias. Again, I am very cautious when I look to AI for answers. And again, when my students ask me, well, can I depend on this answer? Well, you can look to AI, you can ask it a question, but do your homework. Go out there and do your own research as well, because you're not always going to get the right answer. And of course, AI is guided by human input. And there's always going to be some bias. We're human beings and we're putting this information into machines. So being aware of that bias and bad information. One of the other issues too, when we put people to work, students to work on a tool, we're going to miss some of that human interaction. We don't get that face-to-face feel anymore. We don't get our support from our teammates or our our fellow students. And there is that sense of, just sort of being left out there on your own to work with a machine. Also, a creative license and ownership of your own work if you're being guided by a machine to do the work for you. And plagiarism. And I know at my institution we have guidelines and procedures against plagiarism in place. We have policies. So we have to inform our students that if we're going to use an artificial intelligence tool, we need to make sure we cite our resources, even if it's AI. An opportunity. So if AI is doing all of our work, what are we learning? It's taking our opportunities as a human being to actually learn and to function. And also access due to that digital divide. My state is still a very rural state, and not everyone has broadband access. So your student who may need to use a certain program may not be able to use it because they don't have the bandwidth. They don't have a high internet connection where they're at to use that. So we need to think about the access because of our digital divide. And also, finally, don't forget the cost. I've already mentioned this, that cost, it's the expense and whether or not our institutions will pay for it. Final takeaways and tips. So, if you want to do this, if you want to try a tool for your students, to improve your outcome for those students with disabilities, or maybe even just your students, a broader view. If you want to use some of these for, all of your students, look around, strengthen your familiarity with them. Try them out yourself. Like I mentioned earlier, there are free product trials that you can use. Some are 2 weeks, some are 30 days. And try them out. Maybe if you have student workers, have them try them out as well and get their takeaways from that. Um, don't forget your pedagogy. What you're doing now in a classroom, if you try to implement the same pedagogy with a tool, it may not work out. So you need to be flexible with that. Uh, Again, it's trial and error. And, what you do now will change. And that's thanks to artificial intelligence. The old, classroom model where a lecturer, like what I'm doing right now, I'm standing up here and I'm on my podium in front of you, isn't going to work in the future. So we need to adapt and to change how we facilitate our lesson plans and, maybe reconsider our pedagogy. And again, we got to think about those objectives and goals for our assignments or for the course. So, looking at the bigger picture, um, on the course level, what are your overarching goals for your course? And maybe on the assignment level as well. So it can be granular. You have to, really dig down into your lesson plans and your courses and determine what you need in effort to facilitate your course for those students. And also, don't forget your methodology and the technology. They come together. That's where that rubber meets the road, human versus machine. And this is where we find that rough spot that we all will have to overcome. Finding that rough spot and overcoming those obstacles that are presented to us now thanks to our advances in technology. It's going to be a learning curve, everybody, and it's not going to get any easier. I just turned 50 and I have had to rethink my teaching methods in recent years, just recent years, I think probably since the pandemic. And it's been a challenge for me too, because I like to talk. I like to be, I like to be with my students and I like to work with my instructors. And, once after you program a tool to do something, you don't have that option so much anymore. And that means we have to explore new techniques and tools to support those changing student needs. It's a different generation now. I'm reminded of this constantly because my nieces, I have twin nieces that are 23 years old. And for them, they remind me constantly that, it's they prefer to do things a certain way that I'm not used to doing. And, if you have any doubts or any questions, reach out to your colleagues. Ask them what they're using or what their thoughts are. How do they feel? Do they have any recommendations? One thing you can do is you can build out some content using one of your tools, one of your AI tools maybe that you want to try and have them take a look at it and get feedback from them. So, always be on the lookout for new technology and, what changes are going to be out there for us coming again shortly. And here are just a few of my references here if you're interested in maybe looking up any of these. Feel free to contact me direct and I'll be happy to get these to you. And you can take a little look at them for yourself. So I am finished and I want to thank you all for your time. Hopefully I didn't bore you and didn't talk your ear off too much. But I do thank you for joining me today. And that concludes um, my presentation for today.
Well, great, Rhonda. Thank you.
Thank you.
A lot of good information. Really appreciate it. Again, another way to use AI that maybe we didn't think about.
Thank you all so much.
Okay.
All right. Well, you all take care and have a great day.